That's Helen Wellings reporting. Well, it's the sale of the century and it's happening right on our doorstep. Thousands of acres of prime farming land are being sold offshore to the highest bidder. But with more and more farms and food companies now being owned by overseas interests, Georgia Main finds out what's left and what's next for Australia.
They'll own Australia before we know it.
The for sale sign is out, the foreign raiders circling.
When you've got ex-politicians going over to the Arab states to sell our best farms, you have to say that there is something not quite right in our system.
The world's biggest companies and governments beating a path to our door.
The Chinese know that by 2070 they will only be able to feed 30% of their population from their landmass. Now, one of the most aggressive buyers of agricultural land in Australia is China.
Farmer and Managing Director of Sustainable Agricultural Communities of Australia, Rob Belcher.
We're looking at countries like Canada acquiring hundreds, if not millions of hectares.
I do know of one colleague in the dairy industry who sold a couple of significant properties to a institutional investor, and he's actually back working for that company, helping manage the business.
Tasmanian potato and cattle farmer Matt Ryan says there's plenty of farmers forced to bail out to almost any bidder after what's been an extremely tough year.
Sort of wonder that they're coming here wanting to buy farms, and unfortunately for farmers here who are running businesses on very marginal returns, they may have to take those offers.
Aussie farms passed down through generations snapped up. In every city, in every state, the march is on. Grain, dairy farms, water, cattle, all up for grabs. Cargill Australia, a subsidiary of US-based giant Cargill, is trying to acquire Australia's second biggest beef producer, Tees Brothers, based in Queensland. Spanish company Ebro recently bought Sunrice, based in Leeton, New South Wales, for $600 million. The Chinese are acquiring dozens of dairy farms in Victoria, looking to export milk powder back home. And Swiss-owned Amropa paid $50 million for Tasmanian family business of 20 years, Impact Fertiliser. Selling our food bowl, our future food production, will have dire consequences on your hip pocket.
There is no doubt that foreign investment will drive up prices in the supermarket. Once we're out of business, then they can dictate their own prices.
Ausbuy's Lynn Wilkinson claims in the last 6 months, foreign investors have spent $44 billion buying up Aussie shares and land.
And that means the farmers are price takers, not price makers. In the area of dairy, 75% of our dairy is now foreign owned.
Much of our land and business sales go largely unnoticed. The Foreign Investment Review Board only involved in sales worth more than $230 million.
The really disturbing fact here is that this government doesn't know who owns what.
We sell 60% of our food overseas. Much of the food we import is the highly processed food which comes from Europe. I welcome foreign investment in Australia. We can't do it on our own.
The government is in the process of creating a national register to track every farm sold to foreign investors, according to Assistant Treasurer Bill Shorten.
We can't afford to automatically pull up the drawbridge and say Australia says to the rest of the world, leave us alone, because that's not how our country grows its wealth. So we've got to get the balance right.
Already, international investors have snapped up millions of dollars worth of our most precious national resource, water. The US and Singapore have a $180 million stake in our $30 billion water market. Now more than ever, stemming this tide of foreign investment will ensure we can keep feeding ourselves well into the future.
What kind of food are Australians going to be eating? Are we going to be net importers of food and see all the product that is actually grown in our own land taken off to the Arab states or to China or Japan, India?
You don't need to be a rocket scientist to work out that what we've got is incredibly precious.
Times are a-changing. That was Georgia Main with that investigation. Stay with us. We'll be back with more on Today Tonight. Next, why this fed-up flight attendant locked up this mother's child.
He thought it was funny to do that.
Then shoved him in an overhead locker. And it was judged Australia's best